If you're confused about her feelings, if you keep asking yourself, does she really like me or am I just overthinking? Then listen very carefully, because a woman who truly loves you does not hide it by accident. She reveals it in ways most men completely miss. And today I'm revealing the 5 signals that are 100% guaranteed. If you understand these, your entire perspective on love will change. Women express love through behavior, not words, and this is one of the most misunderstood truths in modern relationships because people are trained to listen more than they are trained to observe. Words are easy to speak, emotions are easy to perform, and promises are easy to make when someone wants validation, attention, or temporary connection. Behavior, on the other hand, demands effort, consistency, and emotional investment. A woman who truly feels for you does not rely on dramatic declarations, poetic sentences, or constant verbal reassurance to prove her feelings. Instead, she allows her actions to speak in the quietest but most powerful ways. She shows love in the way she adjusts her life to make space for you, in how she remembers the smallest details about your day, in how she becomes emotionally present without being asked, and in how her priorities slowly begin to shift. You won't always hear her say, "I love you," but you will feel it in how she treats your time as valuable, your emotions as important, and your presence as necessary. Behavioral love is visible in consistency, not intensity. Intensity is loud, fast, addictive, and often short-lived, while consistency is calm, grounded, and long-term. A woman who loves you will show up repeatedly, not just when it's convenient for her or when emotions are running high. She checks in without needing a reason, supports you without making it transactional, and stays emotionally connected even when life becomes stressful or boring. She will not disappear for days and return with sweet words as compensation. Instead, her care remains steady even during ordinary days. When you are sick, overwhelmed, uncertain, or struggling, her presence becomes more noticeable than her speech. She listens fully. She remembers what you share. She worries about things you don't even think to mention, and she emotionally aligns herself with your reality. This steady pattern of behavior is not accidental. It is attachment expressing itself through action. Another powerful way women express love through behavior is through emotional vulnerability. When a woman opens up about her fears, her insecurities, her disappointments, and her past wounds, she is not seeking attention. She is displaying trust. She allows you into parts of her that she protects from the rest of the world. This kind of emotional exposure cannot be faked for long because it requires safety, comfort, and belief that she will not be judged, diminished, or abandoned for showing her real self. You may notice that she becomes softer with you than she is with others, more expressive in private than in public, and more open with her thoughts than she ever planned to be. This is behavioral proof that her emotions are involved, because people do not risk emotional exposure where they do not feel emotional connection. Love through behavior also becomes visible in how a woman handles conflict. Words may become sharp in anger, but love-driven behavior still protects respect. A woman who genuinely cares may be upset, emotional, or disappointed, but she will instinctively avoid destroying your dignity. She may need space, but she does not intentionally humiliate you. She may cry, but she does not weaponize your vulnerabilities. This restraint is not weakness. It is attachment combined with emotional responsibility. When someone does not care, they speak without filters. When someone loves, their behavior is still guided by respect, even in moments of emotional chaos. Perhaps the most silent but strongest behavioral proof of love is how a woman subconsciously integrates you into her future. She talks about upcoming plans with you included. She thinks in we instead of only I, and she naturally adjusts her decisions with your presence in mind. This is not always expressed through big discussions or dramatic commitments, but through ordinary choices that subtly connect her life to yours. She may change her routine to align with yours, consider your availability before making plans, or imagine shared moments without needing to announce them. This unconscious alignment is one of the clearest indicators that her feelings are not temporary, but emotionally rooted. Consistency is the biggest proof of real interest because real emotions do not fluctuate according to convenience, mood, or circumstance. Anyone can show excitement when it's easy, when emotions are fresh, or when they want something in return, but consistency requires discipline, emotional stability, and genuine intention. When a woman is truly interested, her effort does not appear only on special days or during emotionally charged moments. It shows up quietly in the background of ordinary life. She doesn't disappear when things become routine, and she doesn't vanish when communication requires patience. Her presence becomes reliable, not dramatic. You don't have to constantly wonder where you stand with her because her behavior keeps answering that question without needing reassurance. She checks in regularly. She follows through on what she says, and her emotional availability does not suddenly switch on and off. Consistency removes confusion because mixed signals are not a result of love, they are a result of emotional uncertainty or lack of interest masked by temporary attention. Real interest also reveals itself through how a woman maintains the same energy regardless of external circumstances. When she is happy, busy, tired, stressed, or overwhelmed, her core behavior toward you remains steady. She doesn't become distant when life gets heavy, and she doesn't become overly affectionate only when she needs emotional comfort. Her effort remains balanced. She does not use silence as a tool to manipulate your emotions, and she does not create emotional highs and lows to keep you confused and attached. Instead, she builds emotional safety through stability. You feel at ease with her because you are not constantly decoding her behavior. When she says she will call, she calls. When she says she will meet, she meets. When she says she cares, her actions mirror that promise again and again. This kind of reliability cannot be performed for long by someone who is not emotionally invested, because pretending requires energy, but consistency flows naturally from genuine attachment. Consistency becomes even more powerful when things are no longer exciting. The early stage of attraction is driven by novelty, curiosity, and emotional rush, but real interest is tested when that excitement settles into normalcy. A woman who truly cares does not lose interest once the chase is over. She does not become careless once she feels secure. Instead, her effort becomes quieter but stronger. She listens even when the conversation is not thrilling. She supports even when there is no immediate reward. She stays emotionally present even when nothing dramatic is happening. This is where many people mistake boredom for loyalty, but they are not the same. Loyalty is rooted in consistent emotional effort, whereas boredom leads to emotional withdrawal. A woman who remains steady after the initial excitement fades is showing you that her feelings were not built on impulse, but on intention. Another powerful aspect of consistency is how it protects emotional trust. When someone shows up for you repeatedly, your nervous system relaxes, your emotional defenses soften, and your ability to trust deepens without force. You don't feel like you have to beg for attention, chase for validation, or question your worth. Her steady behavior silently reassures you that you matter. She doesn't make you compete for her time, and she doesn't make you feel replaceable through unpredictable behavior. Instead, her actions communicate stability, which is one of the rarest and most valuable forms of emotional security in relationships. Consistency tells you that her care is not dependent on your performance, your mood, or your usefulness in the moment. Over time, consistent behavior also reveals the true depth of someone's intention more clearly than any promise ever could. Promises can be exaggerated under emotional pressure, but consistent effort requires commitment every single day. A woman who continuously chooses to show up, to communicate, to listen, to adjust, and to care is proving through repetition that her interest is not situational. Interest driven by convenience fades when convenience disappears. Interest driven by emotion survives distance, stress, misunderstanding, and time. Consistency is not loud, it is quiet proof, and that quiet proof speaks louder than dramatic affection, temporary attention, or intense but unstable emotional expressions. Emotional safety is a powerful attraction signal because human connection is not sustained by charm, looks, status, or excitement alone. It is sustained by how safe a person feels in your presence. Emotional safety means a woman can express herself without fear of being judged, dismissed, mocked, controlled, or emotionally punished for being honest. When she feels safe with you, her nervous system relaxes, her guard lowers, and her real personality begins to emerge naturally. She no longer feels the need to impress, perform, or hide parts of herself to earn approval. Instead, she becomes authentic, expressive, and emotionally open. This sense of safety creates a deeper form of attraction than surface-level charisma ever could, because it connects at the level of emotional survival. When a woman feels emotionally safe, her body and mind associate you with peace instead of anxiety, comfort instead of tension, and trust instead of uncertainty, and this association grows stronger with every interaction. Emotional safety is built through how you respond to her emotions, especially the difficult ones. When she is upset, insecure, confused, or vulnerable, your reaction teaches her whether it is safe to be real around you. If she shares a fear and you belittle it, she learns to hide. If she expresses hurt and you become defensive, she learns to stay silent. If she opens up and you weaponize her vulnerability later, she emotionally withdraws permanently. But when you listen without interrupting, validate without trying to control, and respond without minimizing her experience, you create a space where she can exist emotionally without fear. Over time, she begins to feel that she does not have to protect herself from you. And this emotional relaxation is deeply magnetic. People are naturally drawn to where they feel understood, accepted, and emotionally secure, even if they cannot logically explain why. Another powerful layer of emotional safety is the absence of unpredictable emotional reactions. When a woman never knows whether she will receive warmth or withdrawal, calm or anger, validation or shutdown, her nervous system stays emotionally alert. Attraction rooted in fear may create intensity, but it cannot create peace. Emotional safety grows when your behavior is stable, when your emotional responses are proportionate, and when your affection is not used as a reward or punishment. When she knows that expressing herself will not cost her the connection, she feels free to be honest. That freedom builds trust, and trust deepens attraction at a level that excitement alone cannot reach. She becomes more emotionally invested, not because she is chasing validation, but because she feels anchored in emotional certainty. Emotional safety also allows intimacy to develop without pressure. A woman who feels safe does not feel rushed, forced, or manipulated into emotional or physical closeness. She approaches intimacy with openness rather than resistance. She does not feel the need to test, provoke, or withhold to protect herself. Instead, she moves closer naturally because the environment feels secure. This is why emotional safety often leads to stronger emotional bonding than intense chemistry alone. When safety is present, vulnerability feels nourishing instead of risky, and closeness feels comforting instead of threatening. Over time, emotional safety reshapes how attraction is experienced. The connection no longer depends on constant stimulation, reassurance, or dramatic highs. It becomes rooted in calm attachment, genuine trust, and emotional transparency. A woman who feels emotionally safe with you starts to associate you with inner peace, and that association is one of the strongest emotional bonds a person can form. She may still find others attractive, charming, or impressive, but emotional safety creates a different category of connection altogether, one that is deeper, steadier, and far more difficult to replace. A woman in love prioritizes you without being asked because genuine emotional attachment naturally reshapes a person's internal hierarchy of importance. When feelings are real, effort is not negotiated, it is instinctive. She doesn't wait for reminders to check in, she doesn't need instructions on when to care, and she doesn't treat emotional presence like a favor she is doing for you. Her attention begins to reorganize itself around your existence in subtle but consistent ways. She thinks of you when making everyday decisions. She considers your comfort even when you are not present, and she naturally adjusts her time, energy, and emotional availability without feeling that she is sacrificing anything. This doesn't come from obligation, guilt, or pressure. It comes from emotional gravity. Just like important responsibilities pull attention without effort, emotional attachment pulls priority without demand. This quiet prioritization becomes especially visible in moments when life is busy, stressful, or emotionally draining. When a woman is not truly invested, her interest fades the moment inconvenience appears. When she is in love, inconvenience does not erase your importance. Even on overwhelming days, even when she is tired, mentally crowded, or emotionally stretched, she still finds small ways to stay connected. It might be a quick message, a short call, a check-in just to hear your voice, or a simple acknowledgement of your presence in her life. These small behaviors often go unnoticed because they seem ordinary, but they are actually powerful indicators of emotional priority. Love does not always announce itself in grand sacrifices. It often shows itself in quiet consistency during ordinary pressure. Another deep sign of prioritization without being asked is how a woman defends the place you hold in her life. She does not allow others to casually disrespect your presence, your time, or your role. She doesn't create emotional triangles. She doesn't entertain a tension that threatens the bond. And she doesn't keep you guessing about where you stand. Even in social environments, her behavior subtly reflects attachment. She speaks about you with warmth. She naturally includes you in stories, and she doesn't make you feel like an optional part of her world. You become integrated into her identity rather than placed on the edge of it. This integration does not require public display or performance. It shows through alignment of behavior. Prioritization also appears in emotional effort, not just time management. A woman in love pays attention to your emotional state even when you do not verbalize it. She notices changes in your tone, your energy, your silence, and your distance. She doesn't dismiss these shifts as unimportant. She becomes curious about them, concerned about them, and emotionally responsive to them. When you are struggling, she does not make it about herself. When you are uncertain, she does not compete with your vulnerability. When you are overwhelmed, she does not disappear. This emotional responsiveness cannot be faked for long because it requires sincere emotional investment. Perhaps the most revealing part of being prioritized without being asked is that it does not come with scorekeeping. She does not constantly remind you of what she does for you. She does not use her effort as leverage in conflict. She does not make you feel indebted for her care. When love is real, giving does not feel like a transaction. It feels like an extension of connection. She gives her time, her concern, her presence, and her support because emotionally she already sees you as part of herself. In that space, prioritizing you doesn't feel like effort. It feels like alignment. Protective energy is a hidden but strong indicator of genuine emotional attachment because it emerges from instinct rather than performance. When a woman truly cares, her sense of responsibility toward your emotional and sometimes even physical well-being activates naturally. This protection is not always loud or controlling, and it is rarely dramatic. It often appears in subtle behaviors that most people overlook. She may caution you about something that could harm you, remind you to take care of your health, worry when you are traveling, or become uneasy when she feels you are emotionally burdened. This is not about ownership or dominance. It is about emotional connection, triggering a desire to preserve what feels valuable to her. Just as the mind protects what it considers important, her emotions lead her to guard you in quiet, almost unnoticeable ways. This protective energy becomes especially visible when she senses a threat to your emotional peace. If someone disrespects you, misunderstands you, or speaks negatively about you, her emotional response is not neutral. Even if she remains calm on the surface, internally she feels the disturbance. She may defend you directly or indirectly. She may correct false narratives, or she may emotionally distance herself from people who diminish your worth. This behavior is not strategic. It is reflexive. It reflects how emotionally linked she feels to you. When your dignity feels connected to her own emotional world, she cannot remain indifferent to your mistreatment. Indifference belongs to those who are detached. Protection belongs to those who are emotionally invested. Protective energy also shows in the way she becomes sensitive to your vulnerabilities. When a woman is in love, she becomes aware of the things that hurt you, stress you, or weaken you, and she instinctively avoids using them against you. Even in conflict, when emotions run high, there is often an invisible line she tries not to cross. She may be upset, disappointed, or frustrated, but the desire to emotionally devastate you is not present. Instead, there is restraint, hesitation, and an underlying concern about how deeply her words might affect you. This restraint is not weakness. It is the protective instinct of attachment. She does not want to become the source of your long-term emotional pain because emotionally she is already connected to your inner world. Another way protective energy manifests is in her alertness to your emotional shifts. When your behavior changes, your tone becomes distant or your energy drops, she feels it before you explain it. She may ask what's wrong even when you say everything is fine. This is not suspicion, it is emotional attunement mixed with concern. She senses when something is off because emotionally she is paying attention to you at a depth that casual interest does not reach. This kind of awareness only develops when someone is emotionally invested enough to track your internal state, not just your outward actions. Protective energy also influences her boundaries with others. A woman who is emotionally attached does not casually expose the bond to unnecessary risks. She becomes more thoughtful about who she allows close to her, how much of her emotional world she shares with outsiders, and how she navigates situations that could create emotional confusion or jealousy. This is not about secrecy. It is about respect for the emotional space she shares with you. Without needing to announce it, her behavior begins to protect the connection itself. She becomes more deliberate, more selective, and more conscious of the emotional consequences of her actions because emotionally she already senses that what exists between you has value. Love is revealed through effort, not excuses, because effort requires intention, while excuses only require explanation. Anyone can justify absence, delay communication, or rationalize emotional neglect, but only someone who truly values you will consistently find ways to show up, regardless of circumstances. Real love does not operate on convenience, it operates on commitment. When feelings are genuine, a person doesn't search for reasons why they cannot be present. They search for ways to remain present even when life becomes complicated. Effort appears in the attempt to understand you even during disagreement, in the consistency of communication when silence would be easier, and in the willingness to adjust behavior when something causes you pain. Excuses, on the other hand, often sound reasonable on the surface, but slowly create emotional distance over time. They disguise disinterest in polite explanations, but polite explanations do not build emotional security. Only repeated effort does. Effort also shows how seriously someone values your emotional experience. A person who loves you does not dismiss your feelings as overreactions or inconveniences. They may not always understand immediately, but they try to. They ask questions, they reflect, they attempt to change patterns that hurt you. This emotional labor is not visible on social media. It doesn't come with dramatic gestures or public displays, but it quietly shapes the quality of the relationship. When someone constantly chooses effort, they choose growth over comfort. When they rely on excuses, they protect their comfort at the cost of your emotional safety. Love that is real is willing to be uncomfortable in order to protect connection, whereas love that is shallow always finds a logical escape from responsibility. Another powerful way effort exposes real love is through time. Time is the only resource that cannot be replaced, and how someone chooses to use it reveals their true priorities. A person who loves you does not continuously delay you, forget you, or fit you only into leftover moments. Even with a busy schedule, they create space. They don't vanish for long stretches and return with apologies as substitutes for presence. Effort means planning, remembering, following up, and staying emotionally engaged, even when life is demanding. Excuses often sound like life is always too overwhelming, but effort quietly adapts instead of withdrawing. When love exists, time is not perfect, but it is intentional. Effort also becomes visible in accountability. A person who loves you takes responsibility when they hurt you, not because they are forced to, but because your pain matters to them. They don't twist the narrative to protect their ego, they don't minimize your experience to escape guilt, and they don't disappear to avoid uncomfortable conversations. They face the discomfort of accountability because the relationship is more important than their pride. Excuses avoid ownership. Effort accepts it. Ownership is one of the clearest proofs that love is operating at a mature level. Perhaps the most telling difference between effort and excuses is that effort builds trust while excuses slowly destroy it. Trust is not broken by one mistake. It is eroded by repeated explanations without behavioral change. When someone keeps promising improvement but showing the same neglect, their words lose emotional credibility. Love that is real understands that trust is rebuilt through changed behavior, not persuasive language. Effort proves intention through repetition, while excuses rely on hope that the other person will continue to tolerate disappointment. Over time, you stop believing words that are not supported by action and begin to value only what is consistently demonstrated, because effort is the language that love speaks when it is sincere.